Chapter 1161, Sending Out the Clones. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. During them, Su Ming meditated in the area. He strengthened his understanding of the epiphany towards the laws of fate, making his body and mind master it thoroughly. On that day, Su Ming opened his eyes slowly and stared at the distant galaxy. His gaze was profound, as if the universe was contained in his eyes. Before long, a long arc charged over from the whirlwind. There was a white ripple around the long arc. Wherever it went, the whirlwind would spread out, allowing the person to muster a certain extent of their power. In the span of a few breaths, the long arc turned into the old Miao Feng hundreds of feet away. He wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed deeply towards Su Ming. "Greetings, Master." Su Ming remained as calm as ever. He cast Miao Feng an indifferent glance and nodded slightly. "Master, I investigated the easternmost direction and noticed tens of thousands of cultivators in the area. They are either in groups of 3 or 4, or in hundreds. They are scattered in several hidden parts in the east. Most of them were wary of me. Besides a small portion who showed delight and surprise towards being offered to join the sect, most of them are hesitant." Miao Feng explained with his head lowered. Su Ming swept his gaze past Miao Feng's body and asked calmly, "How did you get those injuries?" "I obtained them in a spot in the east, about 2 months away from here. It is the furthest I have went this time. There is a small army formed by members of the past Morning Dao sect there. They number nearly 10,000, and they refused your offer to join the sect. However, they wanted the treasure to move through the whirlwind which you bestowed upon me." When Miao Feng said that, he lifted his head and cast Su Ming a glance. He did not continue speaking. A barely noticeable glint shone in Su Ming's eyes. He sized up Miao Feng, then raised his right hand and swung it. Immediately, a medicinal core appeared out of nowhere in his palm before it charged to Miao Feng. "This core is from the higher realm and will heal your injuries. Swallow it and meditate for 2 hours, then bring me to the spot where you were injured." Once Su Ming finished speaking, he closed his eyes, but his divine sense had locked onto the old man in the distance and began observing him closely. Miao Feng received the medicinal core and swallowed it without hesitation before immediately beginning to meditate. Soon, sweat broke out on his skin, and 2 hours later, his eyes flew open. Excitement appeared in them, and banging sounds resounded in his body. In truth, the injuries on his body were not everything. During the disaster, he had also been injured, but had been suppressing it. Yet the 2-hour-long meditation had healed most of his injuries and even made his cultivation base slightly stronger. The qualities of the medicinal core made it clear that it was a valuable item. Miao Feng's gaze when he looked towards Su Ming immediately filled with gratitude. Right away, Su Ming noticed with his divine sense while he had his eyes shut that a power of the laws of fate leaning towards him had appeared around the old man, though it was weak. The old man himself did not notice it, but Su Ming could see it clearly. This proved that his previous analysis was correct. At that moment, he was no longer uncertain of what he should do. Once he opened his eyes, he remained still, but overlapping shadows instantly appeared around him. A muddled figure walked out and turned into another him. It was also dressed in a black robe, but it was Su Ming's clone, the one that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole and which he had just recovered. A faint layer of golden light surrounded the clone. It was one of Su Ming's personalities. At that moment, it had been extracted from him as the clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole left him. In the past, Su Ming could not control his personalities with his own power, but when he gained an epiphany towards fate and took control of the fate in the world around him, he could easily control his different personalities. He could even extract them and fuse into different clones. "Lead the way," Su Ming's clone said in a hoarse voice from within the black robe. Miao Feng immediately voiced his obedience and stood up, turning into a long arc that charged into the distance along with Su Ming's clone. The white ripple was beneath their feet. When it spread out, it pushed away the whirlwind, increasing their speed. It was especially so for Su Ming's clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole. He was already so strong that he could force his way through the whirlwind for a period of time without suffering too much damage. After all, his blood, flesh, bones, and veins were formed after absorbing the ancient god's body. While the physical power he controlled might not be able to make him imperishable, he had still reached a state that he was incredibly hard to destroy. With booming sounds shocking the heavens, two long arcs left swiftly into the distance. After a moment, they disappeared into the whirlwind. Su Ming slowly lowered his head while he was sitting in the millions of feet of empty space formed by the white ripple. He closed his eyes again and began meditating. Su Ming's clone forced his way through the whirlwind with his powerful physical power, and he was so fast that he surpassed Miao Feng. In the end, he grabbed the old man's arm and charged forward while stirring up piercing whistles which indicated that space had been broken as he charged at a speed faster than lightning. Miao Feng felt excitement as well as shock. He knew that his master's level of cultivation was astonishing, but he did not expect that a mere clone would possess such terrifying power. This shocked him, but no rebellious thoughts rose in his heart, only obedience. Half a month after the clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole left, long arcs charged over from the distance into the region where Su Ming as Zhongji Dao meditated. The long arc was incredibly frail, and it seemed to be struggling. When the person rushed into the region within the ripple, he showed up to be Dao Zhong. His face was pale, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. There were numerous white insects squirming in his blood. When he spat some out with the blood, they let out shrill screeches before shattering with a bang. They then turned into centipedes with wings that charged towards Dao Zhong while roaring at him. "Master!" Dao Zhong, who was immensely weakened, immediately shouted while raising his right hand. When he was about to make the last bit of his cultivation base in his body erupt, Su Ming's eyes flew open. He raised his right hand and pointed forward. With it, a power of time descended with a bang on the region where the young man was. It caused a terrifying reversal of time in that small area. As time flowed back, the centipedes with wings fell backwards and turned back into white insects with blood staining their bodies. The blood also immediately flowed back and returned into Dao Zhong's mouth. At the same time, his body trembled. In just 5 breaths, countless white threads seeped out of his pores with a bang, then gathered together to form a small white ball the size of a fist in space. As it formed, Dao Zhong's cultivation base started recovering from its weakened state. He didn't recover to his best condition, but most of his cultivation base had been restored. Only then did the power to reverse time dissipated. Dao Zhong was struck dumb. His body shuddered slightly. His gaze when he stared at Su Ming filled with fear greater than ever before in his life. His heart trembled, for he could sense that what had happened to him just now then was due to a power of time. It was the reversal of time. A great divine ability allowed a person to control time. Only this sort of divine ability could make the injuries on his body to instantly become better. Only it could make the white threads come out of his body in the same manner they entered until they turned back to their original form. Su Ming's strength stunned Dao Zhong at that instant, as if he had been suppressed. He sucked in a sharp breath, then bowed deeply to Su Ming. With respect in his eyes, he said in a deep voice, "Thank you for your help, Master." "What happened?" Su Ming asked flatly. He seized the space with his right hand, and the small white ball immediately went to him. When Su Ming caught it, he began observing it carefully. "Master, I found 31 spots where the cultivators who survived gathered to the west of this place. Most of them have less than 100 people. Only 2 of them have thousands, and they are 2 shattered planets. Based on my observations, I could tell that they are filled with cultivators who were once from the Immortals' Union. There are 4 Almighties in Mastery Realm among them. During the investigation, I was heavily injured by a mortal enemy of mine. If it was not because of the treasure you bestowed upon me allowing me to move through the whirlwind while the other could not chase after me, I might have already died there," Dao Zhong explained with a bitter smile. "And?" He hesitated for a moment. "Speak," Su Ming said flatly while staring at the small white ball in his hand. "The forces of power from the Immortals' Union which chased after me seem to have formed their own sect," Dao Zhong immediately said. Su Ming shifted his gaze away from the small white ball and let his eyelids fall slightly. Immediately, overlapping shadows appeared around him once more. After a moment, a layer of fog manifested around his body. When it moved out of him, it turned into a man with an indistinct appearance. There was an indescribable, malicious air about the man's body. It was Su Ming's Yikan clone, and the black shade from among Su Ming's personalities was within it. That color represented the will of midwinter, signifying destruction and slaughter. When the black shade fused with the Yikan clone, it gradually went black. The black-haired man's appearance could not be seen clearly, but a powerful, killing intent surrounded him. There can only be one sect in true Morning Dao sect from now on. No second one will be tolerated. Once any appear, we will simply destroy it. Only kill their leader. If the ones remaining submit to us, bring them back. Su Ming did not look at Dao Zhong but instead continued staring at the small white ball as if he was incredibly interested in it. A blood-red light shone in the eyes of the black Yikan clone. He did not speak, but took a step forward to appear next to its guide. Dao Zhong felt his heart freeze. He could sense the dense killing intent emanating from the black figure, along with madness that made him shudder. He quickly lowered his head and voiced his obedience while looking forward to the expression his enemy would have upon his return. Chapter 1162, Mo. Damn you, Zhu Qianfeng, this time, I will make you die without having a body to be buried. Killing intent shone in Dao Zhong's eyes, but when he looked at Su Ming's black clone beside him, his expression immediately turned into one of respect. He bowed deeply, then he turned into a long arc and charged forward, disappearing into the whirlwind. This thing is rather interesting. It's an insect egg, but there is a hint of the power of a world contained in it. It seems like it isn't something that belongs to this true world. Su Ming stared at the small white ball in his hand, then sent his divine sense into it to observe it carefully. Once they fused, the small white ball started shuddering in Su Ming's hand as if it was struggling to free itself, but Su Ming's hand was like a seal that completely sealed up its movements. There were two long arcs charging through true Morning Dao world. Before them, there was a shattered continent in the whirlwind. It was not large and had already been broken up. Even the center of the continent was divided by the whirlwind. Miao Feng pointed at the continent in the whirlwind before he spoke respectfully to Su Ming's clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole. Master, it's this place. This is the spot where the small army formed by those who once belonged to Morning Dao sect live. They have 3 almighties in there. The clone had a calm expression on his face when he cast a glance at the continent in the whirlwind. He walked out of the white ripple and forced his way through the whirlwind by turning into a long arc that stirred up shocking booms. Miao Feng followed behind him. He stared at the clone forcing his way through the whirlwind and became even more wary of Su Ming. The clone did not intend to hide his movements. The booming sounds he stirred up reverberated in the air and reached the continent. In just the span of a few breaths, a long arc flew out from inside it. Heh, trespassers are not allowed here. This is the territory of Morning Dao sect. Those who trespass will be killed. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man with an aquiline nose. He was dressed in a golden robe, and there was a hint of arrogance on his face. His words traveled in all directions, echoing in space. The power belonging to those in Mastery Realm spread out from his body. His presence was slightly muddled, making it clear that he had just recently reached Mastery Realm, but his arrogance was much greater than that of most almighties in Mastery Realm. There was an air of superiority about him, but he was not someone who had fought in battles before. He might have seemed arrogant, but his heart was filled with caution. What answered him was a punch from Su Ming's clone as he descended from the long arc. The punch was thrown when the two of them were hundreds of thousands of feet away, but it was such a monstrous attack that the galaxy shook, the universe rumbled, the earth trembled, and the whirlwind froze for a moment. It immediately turned into an illusory shadow in the sky. That shadow was 1,000 feet large. When it closed in with loud bangs on the middle-aged man, it expanded until it was 10,000 feet large. The middle-aged man's expression changed, and he quickly retreated without any hesitation. When he raised his arms, incantations tumbled out of his mouth. He also formed several seals before he tapped a few spots in front of him. Rays of light from treasures shone on his body. In the blink of an eye, they turned into a shield that was several dozens of feet large in front of him. It had a picture of 2 pythons on it. At that moment, the 2 pythons came to life and flew out to surround the middle-aged man. They formed a whirlwind that crashed against the incoming punch. Booming sounds shook the entire galaxy. The 2 pythons did not even manage to scream in pain before their bodies were reduced to ashes. The shield too instantly disappeared, allowing the punch to land on the middle-aged man's body. The man's face turned stark pale. Fearful disbelief appeared on his face, but no matter what, he was an almighty. He might not have been able to escape in time, but he bit his tongue with a snap of his jaw, and with that intense pain, he stimulated his nascent divinity. It fell back swiftly and rushed out of his body the instant its physical body collided with the illusory shadow of the fist. Boom! If anyone looked from above, they would find that the middle-aged man's body was reduced to a bloody shower. As rumbling sounds echoed in the galaxy, the fist landed on the continent. A loud bang shook the sky and earth, and the ground trembled violently. Wind swept outwards madly like the waves in an ocean, shocking and astonishing the 10,000-something cultivators on the continent. Most of them flew up before raising their heads to look the sky with fear and panic on their faces. Su Ming's clone revealed himself in the sky. With a swing of his arm, he said flatly, "The 9th summit has descended. Those who submit will enter the sect, and you will offer up your souls to do so. Those who do not will have no need to continue living in degradation." Once the dust settled, a huge pit was revealed on the continent. That hole went through the entire continent. Those above it could see the galaxy on the other side. The whirlwind shot through the hole and turned into a vortex that penetrated the continent to connect both sides of the galaxy. Thin cracks spread out from the edges of the hole to the entire continent with loud cracking sounds. The shock of it was enough to astonish all the cultivators in the area. 2 long arcs flew out from the continent and stood in the air to stare at Su Ming's clone with grim expressions on their faces. They were also staring at Miao Feng, who had only just arrived behind Su Ming. The 2 cultivators were old men. At that moment, one of them said in a dark tone, "Sir, what is the meaning of this? Are you taking advantage of us for having lost our connection with Morning Dao sect and intend to forcefully plunder out souls? Aren't you afraid of Morning Dao sect's rage once the whirlwind disappears? Morning Dao sect has already been reduced to ruins. The Immortals Union is gone. Plenty of cultivators have died in the entire true Morning Dao world. All of you are trees without roots. Even if you can last for many years until the whirlwind disappears, you will not find the peace of the past welcoming you. Instead, you will be faced with a disaster that will be much more violent than this whirlwind. Enter the 9th summit and become the masters of true Morning Dao world. This is your only choice," Su Ming's clone stated flatly. "Nonsense. Morning Dao sect is powerful enough that it will not be destroyed by this whirlwind. On what basis do you dare to say on the basis that I can move through the whirlwind and on the basis that I can bring all of you through it as well?" Su Ming said calmly. "Do you agree or disagree?" A brilliant light shone in his eyes when he said his final sentence. A chilling, killing intent shone in the eyes of the old man who had spoken, but at that moment, Su Ming's clone smiled coldly. He raised his right hand and seized the air in the direction of the hole he had just punched. Immediately, the vortex formed by the whirlwind jolted as if it was being sucked by a great force. As everyone stared in shock and horror, it charged towards Su Ming. It surrounded him, and when Su Ming clenched his fist and struck forward, booming sounds shook the universe. The vortex disintegrated and fell backwards, charging towards the whirlwind in the galaxy beyond the continent. Continuous booming sounds reverberated in the air, and a gap that was 100,000 feet big appeared in the whirlwind. This gap was formed by Su Ming throwing a punch with his full power. The whirlwind in the gap disintegrated, and the power of the world in it fell back. This shocked the heart of the old man who had killing intent in his eyes. What level of cultivation do you have?" Right after he said that, the other old man sighed under his breath. Determination appeared on his face, and he wrapped his fist in his palm to bow deeply toward Su Ming. "I am willing to join the 9th summit." As he spoke, the mark of his soul immediately shone at the center of his brows. Upon rising, it rushed out and charged toward Su Ming. In an instant, it fused with him, and he relaxed. Su Ming's strength had given him a great shock, but the more shocking thing was that with his power of Fate Realm, he had been able to tell that the person before him was just a clone. Compared to the success experienced by Su Ming's clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole, his Ikang clone, the one which contained his black, destructive personality and was yet to gather together a corporeal form, found himself faced with a different conclusion due to the different personalities Su Ming gave the two great clones. "Those who submit live, and those who defy me die," the Yikang clone stated in a hoarse voice while its face remained indistinct. In his right hand was a bloody head whose face was full of disbelief. It seemed like the man could not believe that he would die even right before his death. As he spoke, Su Ming's Yikang clone threw the head forward, and it landed on a tower made up of more than 1,000 heads piled up together. Behind the tower of heads were thousands of cultivators. At that moment, their faces were pale, and the two men right in front stared at two heads among the thousands of heads while their hearts trembled. The two heads belonged to almighties who were equal to them in terms of strength and who were their companions. However, before the indistinct figure with a malicious air spreading from its entire body, the two almighties did not even last for the span of an incense stick before they were killed. "Who are you?" one of the two men roared in a nearly hysterical tone. The moment his roar traveled into space, Su Ming's Yikang clone lowered his head swiftly. Blood-red light shone in his eyes, and his body swiftly expanded. An Yikang tree appeared between the sky and earth, and an endless, malicious presence spread out. It was an oppressive air that suffocated others, and it instantly landed in the hearts of the thousands of cultivators on the planet. "You may call me Mo Su, but you can also call me Mo," Su Ming's Yikang clone said hoarsely. "Mo." The man shuddered, then lowered his head in anguish. He wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed to Su Ming's Yikang clone. The other almighty was also forced to lower his head and worship him. As the two of them submitted, the thousands of cultivators knelt down and worshipped Su Ming without any hesitation. "We are willing to join the 9th summit. Greetings, Sect Master Mo." As they bowed, the mark of their souls immediately appeared at the center of all their brows. They gathered together and charged towards Su Ming's Yikang clone. When they fused into him, his body instantly looked like it had become slightly more corporeal. At the same time, the power of the law of fate, which was visible to Su Ming alone, appeared on the thousands of cultivators. Immediately after, as if the power of the laws of fate reacted to Su Ming, a barely discernible law of fate belonging to him appeared around his Yikang clone. Chapter 1163, Fang. Su Ming sat in the big empty spot enveloped by the white ripple in true morning Dao world, right next to the edge of the relocation rune while he stared at the small white ball in his palm. Shrieks came from inside it at that moment. There was madness and ferociousness in the voice, as if it wanted to rush out of Su Ming's right hand and devour him. However, his hand was like a seal that kept the small white ball imprisoned. No matter how it struggled, it was useless. This is definitely not something of this world. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. The more he investigated the item, the more he sensed the strange qualities within it. There were 99,999 insects in the form of thin threads in the ball. None of them were sentient, but strangely, once they gathered together, a sort of will formed between them. That will was very faint. Once Su Ming's divine sense touched it, he immediately sensed a monstrous aggressiveness and madness within it. The white ball seemed to want to devour the universe, and its madness promised that it would not willingly submit even in the face of the paragons in the universe. "This is an egg." A brilliant light shone in Su Ming's eyes as he mumbled to himself. He sensed a hint of life force in the will. It was as faint and weak as the will, but it gave off the feeling that it could grow endlessly. Interesting. It is divided into nearly 100,000 parts which have no consciousness. However, when they are together, a faint will can be born. Since this item is not from this world, there is a high possibility that it is from Saint Defire or Dark Dawn. After remaining silent for a moment, Su Ming furled his right hand. At the same time, his divine sense became violent and swept past the small white ball, using violence to instantly destroy all forms of consciousness within it. Cracking sounds immediately came from the small ball. There seemed to be a shrill scream of pain which only divine senses could hear in those sounds. After a moment, a wisp of green smoke spread out from the small ball. When it disappeared without a trace, the ball was no longer white, but had become dreary gray. The instant Su Ming destroyed the will in the small white ball, in the depths of the endless whirlwind within true morning Dao world, right under the gap to arid triad expanse cosmos, a shrill roar rang out. If anyone could see into the depths of the whirlwind, they would be able to see a gigantic object. It was a locust that was magnified an unknown number of times. The insect was so large that its size was comparable to that of an ancient god. The locust was laying eggs, and there were numerous small white balls connected to it with thin threads. The small balls numbered to tens of thousands. They were connected to each other, and all of them were squirming and shrinking. If anyone saw it, their skill would crawl. It was a terrifying sight to behold. At that moment, the large insect was roaring, and its compound eyes filled with anger and madness. Buzzing sounds came swiftly from its body. Who is it? Who killed my babies? My and Fang's babies. As the locust roared, a fierce light lit up in its eyes, and the creature stared into space. After a long while, Su Ming's figure appeared clearly in its eyes. This person is from Saint Defia's camp. All those from Saint Defia should die. The locust threw its head back and roared. Its cultivation base spread out, and it was so strong that it could make the galaxy tremble. It was a power that surpassed those of sublime paragons. Even though the insect had yet to reach Avacania realm, its level of cultivation was already incredibly terrifying. Just as it was about to rush out, a golden chain flew out from the gap in space behind it. With a crack, it hit its body, making the locust jolt. Damn this chain from Saint Defia Expanse Cosmos. If it wasn't limiting my descent, I would have long since become the master of Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos. My fellow Taoists from Dark Dawn, what are you doing? You asked me to descend so that I can gain the initiative, but if you don't get rid this Saint Defia chain, how am I supposed to descend with my full power? The locust threw its head back and roared. Its voice traveled straight into the gap that led to somewhere unknown. At that moment, golden light swiftly shone on the golden chain. Not only did it not disappear, it charged towards the locust at an even faster speed. Judging by the looks of it, it seemed like it could crush the locust straight away. Damn it! Damn it! This is a Saint Defia attacking me. Madness appeared on the locust's face. When it saw the chain approaching it, it roared loudly, and its body swiftly crumbled before the chain to turn into tens of thousands of parts that fused into the eggs behind it. Immediately, the eggs resembling small white balls shuddered together before splitting up to turn into tens of thousands of parts that shot into all directions. The golden chain swept outwards, and the galaxy roared. The universe was damaged, and 9/10 of the tens of thousands of small balls crumbled. However, there were hundreds of them that vanished into space and disappeared without a trace. Fortunately, I activated the body-splitting art once I came here. Damn that Saint Defia camp. Sooner or later, all of you will die. A crazed voice traveled through the galaxy. When it reverberated in space, the golden chain lashed out again, stirring up a layer of golden ripples that swept towards the fleeing hundreds of small white balls. However, the instant it lashed out, a sinister, cold snort suddenly came from the gap in Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos. At the same time, a strange arm that looked like an octopus tentacle lashed out and collided with the golden chain. Booming sounds rang out. The war between us has yet to end. The battle between Dark Dawn and Saint Defia is still ongoing. If you dare get distracted by the matters in this place, you might die in this battle. The voice was answered by a woman's cold snort, but the golden chain disappeared. The two people's presences seemed to leave the gap within Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos to continue waging war in their own battlefield. The moment the hundreds of small white balls spread out in the whirlwind, they rushed out in multiple directions to charge towards life forms closest to them. As long as they could touch a living and breathing creature, they would latch onto them as parasites and use them to nourish their bodies. When they merged together again, they would regain the form of the locust. Its level of cultivation would be slightly lower than before, but given time and enough killing for offerings, it could return to its top condition in a short period of time. Not all of the hundreds of small white balls stayed in true Morning Dao world. Quite a large number of them split up and shot through the plane between worlds to head to the other three great true worlds. Kill, I need to kill. I need the fear of countless lives when they die. Only by doing so can I recover at the shortest amount of time possible. Only then can I build my own locust army in this shoddy lower realm. The locust roared, and it slowly spread out as the hundreds of small white balls gradually spread out. After about a day passed, in the galaxy to the north in true Morning Dao world, Chen Wen and Sima Yu were looking around themselves with grave expressions. There were thousands of cultivators in red robes around them. All of the cultivators had numb expressions, which created a grim and chilling atmosphere. Each of them had extraordinary power, but what was even more shocking was their murderous aura as well as the feeling of superiority belonging to those who always won in the battles they participated. Perhaps by themselves they were not Chen Wen and his wife's opponents, and not even 10 or 100 of them could hope to match up to them, but there were thousands of them. Their presences seemed to be connected, fusing into a single shockingly strong one. Chen Wen could instantly sense danger. When the thousands of presences fused together, what the wife and husband felt became even worse. My friends, are you cultivators from Morning Dao Sect's war chamber? Please ask your commander to come forth so that we may speak to him, Chen Wen said in a mild tone, abandoning the arrogance usually adopted by almighties. However, the area around them was silent. No one answered. The thousands of people had no expression on their faces. They only stared at Chen Wen and his wife coldly. Kill them, a calm voice with matchless chilling air said languidly from the legion of cultivators. Almost the instant the words were spoken, the thousands of cultivators looked like they had woken up from deep sleep. They moved, and a bizarre presence swiftly came from each cultivator's body. It did not seem to be formed by a cultivation method, but like a strange divine ability which belonged to the tribes in Divine Essence Star Ocean. At the instant the presence erupted, the eyes of the thousands of cultivators turned bloodshot. Their cultivation bases increased exponentially at the same time, and they roared in a manner that could shake the sky and earth. Kill them! Chen Wen and his wife's expressions immediately changed drastically when the thousands of cultivators took a uniform step forward. Their murderous aura reached a monstrous degree and descended on the couple with loud bangs. At the instant it looked like a battle was about to erupt, Chen Wen activated his cultivation base. Sima Yu's expression changed, and she cried out in a piercing voice. The two of us represent the only sect in true Morning Dao world right now, the 9th Summit. We came here to invite all of you into the sect. My master is a cultivator from the higher realm, and his level of cultivation far exceeds what you can imagine. If you insist on attacking us, you will surely be bringing upon yourselves the disaster of your entire race being destroyed. The instant Sima Yu said those words, the thousands of cultivators in the area revealed their killing intent. They charged forward, but at that moment, the voice which had come from behind the legion of cultivators spoke again. Stop! This one word immediately made the thousands of cultivators come to an abrupt halt. Their uniform movement caused Chen Wen's pupils to shrink when he saw it. Immediately after, the legion of cultivators before Chen Wen and Sima Yu took 3 uniform steps to the side to reveal a gap leading to the space beyond the encirclement. A tall figure slowly walked forward through it. That figure held a gigantic battle axe in his hand while taking huge strides forward. His body was tall and muscular, and he was filled with an indescribable, murderous aura. But he had no head. It was a figure that brought others fear when they cast their eyes on it. The man's cultivation base also exuded a bizarre ripple. He seemed like an almighty, but at the same time, not. Chen Wen and his wife could not help themselves and cast their gazes on him. The instant they got a clear look of the person, their expressions changed at once. They cast each other a glance before bringing out the jade slip Su Ming had given them to compare the portrait with the person before them. Chapter 1164. Senior Brother. Once they finished checking, a strange light lit up in Chen Wen's eyes, but before he spoke, the headless man walking over with a heinous murderous aura all over his body spoke in a ghastly, booming voice. Did you just say the 9th Summit? It is indeed the 9th Summit. Chen stared at the headless man, then wrapped his fist in his palm before he bowed deeply towards him. He swiftly squeezed the jade slip in his hand, intending to send the information of his findings back to Su Ming. But when he squeezed the jade slip, Chen Wen's expression suddenly changed drastically. It was the same for Sima Yu. They discovered to their shock that the jade slips in their hands had turned into normal stones at some unknown point in time. Their jade slips had instead appeared in front of the headless man. They shone with a brilliant light as the headless man used his divine sense to check them. This scene immediately caused Chen Wen and his wife to feel their hearts thump in their chests. Shock and fear filled their bodies. They had no idea how he had been able to do such a thing, and how they had been unable to even notice it. After a moment, the jade slips in front of the headless man shattered with a bang. The person who gave you these jade slips has extraordinary power. I cannot see the contents within them. Lead the way. I will go to the 9th summit you speak of. When the man mentioned the 9th summit, no one noticed that there was a slight quiver in his voice. His heart was far from the calm look he put up on his face. A huge storm was raging within him. It was mixed with extreme anticipation. Are you the one who gave them these jade slips, youngest junior brother? The headless man mumbled in his heart. In silence, he swung the battle axe in his right hand, and it immediately turned into a long arc that charged towards Chen Wen and Sima Yu. The long arc shot through the space between them, going straight towards the whirlwind. With loud booms, a path was opened. Lead the way, the headless man repeated languidly. Chen Wen and Sima Yu cast each other a glance. After a moment of hesitation, they made their choice. Su Ming had given them the jade slips while saying that they were to immediately notify him when they saw the people in the portraits. Although the jade slips had shattered, they would still be considered to have fulfilled his request if they brought the man to him. As Chen Wen and his wife's expression changed, they chose to lead the way. The ripples under their feet immediately spread out and enveloped the area. The couple then charged along the path that had been opened in the whirlwind. Behind them, the headless man took large strides forward. He was followed by the thousands of cultivators with expressionless faces. Together, they all charged through the whirlwind. The headless man was completely unbothered by it. When he swung his axe, the whirlwind before it would disintegrate and fall backwards, opening a path for him. In the meantime, Su Ming was still sitting cross-legged in the empty space. The instant the jade slips shattered, his eyes flew open. A dark glare shone in them. He cast a glance at the galaxy in the distance, then frowned slightly. The jade slips I gave Chen Wen and his wife were shattered. It's not because of them, however, but someone else forcefully shattering them. Yet person would not have been able to obtain the portraits I left behind. Since the person could crush my jade slips, they should have become a true almighty in mastery realm, not like the others in Arid Triad, who have only reached a pseudo-mastery realm. Looks like even if true Morning Dao world is terrorized by the disaster brought by the whirlwind, there are still plenty of powerful warriors around. This is good. Su Ming pondered over it for a moment, then closed his eyes again. He could sense that Chen Wen and his wife were still alive and were rushing in his direction. All the answers would be clear when they returned. At the same time, Su Ming sensed that his clones with the different personalities were using different methods to collect more souls and gather more power of the laws of fate. Their actions proved that Su Ming's assumption was plausible. If he could gather together all the remaining cultivators in true Morning Dao world, he could complete the second step of his plan. He could control his own fate, then use the light of extreme darkness to replace the laws in a small area. To the east, Su Ming's clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole was shrouded in golden light. It had a gentle air, but due to the clone's mighty strength, the golden light had a domineering presence despite its gentleness. Miao Feng stood behind the clone. He was followed by tens of thousands of people. They moved forward like a great flood while enveloped by the white ripple. Before them was a planet that was still partially whole. The moment they arrived, nearly 10,000 cultivators flew out. Submit to me and join the 9th summit. You will then receive protection during the disaster. This is your only choice. You are not allowed to resist or refuse, because this is the only way for you to survive. The clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole had golden light spread out from his body. He lifted his hands slowly, and his voice from within the golden light traveled in all directions. In another place, the west of true Morning Dao world, Su Ming's Yikan clone killed all those who refused to join the sect with a murderous aura and bloodlust wherever he passed. Roaring behind him was a sea of blood filled with countless heads. They intimidated the tens of thousands of cultivators who followed him. Their numbers were similar to those that the golden clone had gathered. The hearts of the cultivators trembled every time they caught a glance of it. When they cast their gazes on Su Ming's Yikan clone, there was deep respect in them. In another place was a lone ship sailing through the whirlwind. The gentle man on it was drinking wine while accompanied by beautiful women. He looked like he was having the time of his life. Behind him was an incredibly boorish person. This man had a simple and honest look on his face. With a sideways glance, he stared at the gentleman with a scornful expression. Second senior brother, should I change the way I refer to that woman beside you as my second sister-in-law or as your master? Damn it, that title is too confusing. The man harumphed. The lady sitting beside the gentleman was a beautiful woman. She was completely unbothered by the big man's words and covered her mouth to hide a chuckle. Due to her laughter, her eyes narrowed into the shapes of crescent moons, and she stared at the gentleman by her side. This adorable person was once her disciple, but had now become her man. Huzi, there are 3 things in a person's life against which they are completely helpless. Do you know what they are? The gentleman drank his wine, then put down the cup and signaled to the beautiful woman beside him to pour wine for him. When he turned his head around, he had a smile that was like spring wind. Nonsense. Of course I know those stupid 3 helpless things you're talking about. To me, when I want to drink but there is no wine, I feel helpless. When I want to sleep but can't, I feel helpless. When I miss home but can't see the 9th summit, I feel helpless as well. There's no way you'd feel helpless. Come on, why don't you tell me? I'd like to hear it. The honest-looking man seemed to be incredibly dissatisfied with the gentleman and spoke loudly. Ahem, 3rd junior brother, you are so rude. It would have been fine if there was no one else beside us, but when there are other people, could you show at least a little respect to your 2nd senior brother? The gentleman shook his head and picked up the wine cup to take a sip from it with an incredibly resigned expression. Rubbish. From the day you went off and left me in the Immortals Union, I swore that I would definitely take revenge. Why you? You went off to find love in a woman's bosom while making me suffer in the Immortals Union, and you didn't even bother picking me up after so many years. There were plenty of times when my body was shot full of holes. The honest man glared at the gentleman. But that is the plan set by eldest senior brother. He wanted us to split up, and he said that you needed to put yourself through the mill. If you want to be angry, go to eldest senior brother. The gentleman pouted and sighed. HMH, I wouldn't dare to get angry at eldest senior brother, but as for you, I've already helped you preserve enough of your dignity by not mentioning you spying at the female disciples from the other summits in the past. I still remember that you even wanted to figure out the method to create the rune for peeking at others, but failed and were chased to the 9th summit, the honest man said with a harumph while glaring at the gentleman. The gentleman let out a few dry coughs and changed the topic. I have yet to finish speaking. There are 3 things in a person's life about which they feel completely helpless. Huzi, the 3 things we feel helpless against are envy, jealousy, and hate. Right now, you're envious of me, and you're even jealous of me, and because of it, you have hate growing in you, but I'm your 2nd senior brother. Oh well, look at the season. Could it be spring? Don't worry, Huzi, I will handle your marriage. The gentleman patted his chest as if he was making a pledge. Come on, tell me, what type do you like? Don't worry, even if I can't find the type you like among the girls here, when we go to the barren lands of divine essence to search for youngest junior brother, he will definitely find one that is good for you over there, the gentleman said in a teasing manner while taking a sip of his drink. Huzi fell silent. Why aren't you speaking? Huzi, you shouldn't be embarrassed at such a young age. Come on, tell me. When the gentleman saw that Huzi had a different expression on his face, he became interested. He even sat up a little straighter. Huzi still remained silent. Let me guess. Do you like the younger ones, so that you can enjoy the feeling of protecting them when you're together? No, that can't be right. Then do you like older women? The mature ones who still retain some of their charms despite being past their prime? The gentleman spoke non-stop, causing Huzi's face to twitch. In the end, he could not take it anymore and his right hand rose swiftly. A pot of wine appeared in his palm, and he threw it at the gentleman. An incredibly exaggerated scream of pain rose up. It was followed by a sigh. Women who are past their prime, young lasses. You're still too young. Oh, Huzi, why are your tastes so strange? Sir, that is a good poem. That's right, sir. This is the 637 road poem you made on your way here. I've recorded all of them. Hu Zi's face twitched a few more times before he cast the gentleman a resigned look and sighed long and hard. He then picked up a pot of wine and started drinking, no longer bothering himself with him. In one galaxy, but 3 different places. Fellow brothers of a lifetime. Perhaps there was some sort of fate manipulating events, but it did not matter whether it was the headless man or the ship. Both of them were slowly approaching the spot where Su Ming had made his residence. If they did not run into any accidents on the way, then perhaps soon they would be able to see each other. A separation that lasted for more than 1,000 years. Perhaps soon they would reunite. Chapter 1165, and Fang's Baby. As time trickled by, another month passed. Su Ming remained meditating, quietly trying to gain an epiphany about the laws in the world around him. He also quietly sensed the increasing power of the laws of fate that his 2 clones absorbed. The aura of his cultivation base grew every day. It might not be much, but without a doubt, he was getting stronger. In fact, during the past few days, besides trying to understand the laws of fate, he had spent some time to understand Zhong Jidao's memories. From them, he gained a deeper understanding of essences and the existence that was Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos. Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos is like the origin of heaven. In the eyes of Saint Defier and Dark Dawn, this is an expanse cosmos that was just born. It is just like Dark Dawn and Saint Defier Expanse Cosmos during their early days. In the endless passage of time, they had grown until each of them obtained 180 expanse cosmoses. This can be considered a form of wholesomeness. It can be said that their expanse cosmoses reached the limit of their growth. If I say that the expanse cosmos itself is the mother, then the 180 expanse cosmoses in it are her children, and the cultivators as well as the lives in those 180 expanse cosmoses are her blood veins. Arid Triad is an expanse cosmos which has just been born. It is an origin of an expanse cosmos which will have 180 expanse cosmoses develop from it if it is given enough time. This is why if Saint Defier or Dark Dawn obtain Arid Triad, they will gain the power to destroy the other party. It is also why from the moment they discovered Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos, they began fighting over it ceaselessly. Su Ming opened his eyes and stared at the galaxy, falling silent once more. Compared to Saint Defier and Dark Dawn, the current Arid Triad was like a child. It was absolutely impossible for it to compare itself to the 2 ancients. It simply did not possess the power to fight. Whether it was Saint Defier or Dark Dawn, both of them would find it incredibly easy to subjugate Arid Triad. But unfortunately for them, they were fighting against each other, and neither allowed the other to make the first step. On top of that, Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos might be weak, but it was still an expanse cosmos in its early stages of development, which meant that it had a power within it that could suppress external forces. This was an instinctive reaction of Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos. While growing, it would reject all forms of external forces from stepping into it. Even if someone forced their way in, they would have their level of cultivation suppressed. However, this had changed because of the disaster a year ago. A gigantic gap had opened up, and it could allow those from Saint Defier and Dark Dawn to step in without anything inhibiting them. It was as if a door had been opened, lying Arid Triad bare before anyone who came. It could only quietly await its fate of being gobbled up. And the cause of all this was Su Xianyi. Since I am not Su Xianyi's son, who exactly is his child? Could it be Yu Xian? But it couldn't be that simple. That man has incredible intelligence and a great mind for strategy. He also behaves in a manner as if he is nearly mad. His thoughts cannot be predicted nor guessed by a normal person. But no matter what, one of the segments in his plan is definitely built on the idea to destroy the entire Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos to make Saint Defier and Dark Dawn pay a devastating price. This would explain why he opened that gap. It would force the tension between Dark Dawn and Saint Defier to reach its climax, and would bring them over en masse. The best result would be if all their powerful warriors descended. If that happened, then when Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos collapsed, they would face the destructive power of an expanse cosmos in the early stages of development collapsing. It would not be something that cultivators could withstand. But what would he gain by doing this? How can he make the Abyss Builders raise to power? What else is he planning? In silence, Su Ming shook his head. There were some thoughts in his mind, but he did not know whether his analysis was accurate. He could only continue waiting and observing in hopes to obtain a serendipity which would help him survive the disaster. Essence. The foundation of all external matters. Wind, rain, thunder, lightning, all things that exist will have essences. Steel, wood, water, fire, earth, the cause of the changes in essences within everything in the universe. If I was to master essences, I would definitely be able to walk down the path of becoming a powerful warrior. The more essences I understand, the stronger my power will be. Is this the foundation of Saint Defier Expanse Cosmos cultivation method? I wonder what is Dark Dawns. Su Ming remembered the small white ball from before. He fell into a moment of pensive silence. Within the memories of Zhongji Dao were some battles with the cultivators from Dark Dawn. Interesting. Those from Dark Dawn are all beings transformed from foreign matter, and they are all different from Saint Defier's cultivators. They can take human form, but usually they can only bring forth their full power when they are in their original forms. This is the truth based on the cultivator from Dark Dawn's camp who fought against Zhongji Dao in the past. His original form was a three-eyed toad that was thousands of feet big. Compared to the cultivators in Saint Defier referring to themselves as immortals and gods, those from Dark Dawn refer to themselves as demons and ghosts. They do not practice essences, but their own cores. Even if their cultivation systems are generally the same, the core of it is completely different. When they cultivate the core in their bodies, it is their souls and their nascent divinities as well. It is also the heart of the mark of their lives. The changes in them are unfathomable, and this core can fight against essence's energy from Saint Defier Expanse Cosmos. From this, I can tell that this so-called power of cultivating the core contains the foundation of the universe. In silence, Su Ming raised his right hand, and the grey ball immediately appeared on his palm. There was still life force in the ball, but it was no longer sentient. The near 100,000 thin threads in it remained still, as if they were in deep sleep. If that's the case, then I can be certain that this is from Dark Dawn. Since it appeared in the whirlwind, could it be that someone from Dark Dawn has already descended? Su Ming pondered it for a moment before he spread his divine sense and had it fuse into each of the threads in the small grey ball. But no matter how Su Ming fused his divine sense or completely enveloped the inner parts of the small grey ball, he could not find a way to leave a brand of his divine sense. It was as if the small grey ball was transparent. A fierce light shone in Su Ming's eyes. He opened his mouth and let out a puff of the breath of his life. Once it surrounded the ball, he sent his divine sense to scan it again, but obtained the same results. The small ball might have seemed to contain countless threads densely packed together, but Su Ming still could not find a spot to leave a brand. He let out a cold harumph. When he lifted his left hand to form a seal, the white ripple around him shone. It spread out before falling back and charging towards Su Ming. In an instant, it turned into a white ring. With Su Ming's will controlling it, the ring instantly enveloped the small grey ball, and it shrank slightly. The ball let out a cracking sound, and the near 100,000 thin threads instantly shuddered. At the same time, Su Ming sent his divine sense inside once more. Without pausing for even a moment, he left his brand on the thin threads. Once he was done, Su Ming unfurled his right hand and tapped the small grey ball. It immediately shattered with a bang. Buzzing sounds soon echoed in space. The grey threads flew out from within the ball and surrounded Su Ming, forming a grey whirlwind. It consisted of nearly 100,000 threads. As they spun, a vague figure could be seen inside. This figure looked like a locust which had been magnified many times, and it exuded a strange demonic presence. Su Ming closed his eyes. He could sense that his brand existed on each of the 100,000 threads, and he could control all of them. He could also sense that the threads were like babies that had lost their foundation and could no longer keep growing. Before long, they would wither and die. The moment Su Ming had his divine sense finally brand the 100,000 threads with the power of the white ring and they surrounded Su Ming, forming a whirlwind around him, dozens of cultivators in various places in true Morning Dao world shuddered simultaneously. A huge hole appeared at the center of their brows, but no blood gushed out. The holes had been made by a white ball of light which had appeared and penetrated their skulls while they were meditating not too long ago. Their presences had disappeared after that, but at that moment, as they shuddered, They opened their eyes simultaneously. Someone made a baby of mine manifest itself. This baby isn't one of those who had split up from me previously. This is the one I sent out in the beginning. It had latched itself onto the body of a cultivator of this world, but it soon had latched itself onto another person. Someone then took it out and wiped off its consciousness. This person has quite the courage. Since he could wipe off the consciousness of my baby and leave his brand, he cannot be weak, but he is a little too conceited. If my baby had enough nutrients, it could grow to my level. But unless it devoured billions of cultivators in arid triad, it would have trouble growing up. Still, I don't need to be worried about it. I'm actually looking forward to its growth. When I meet up with it, I can devour it and shorten my time of recovery. These sort of words tumbled out of the mouths of the dozen-something cultivators scattered in different places at the same time. Their words and tone were the exact same. In fact, there were also quite a number of cultivators and ferocious beasts who had holes appear at the center of their brows in the other three great true worlds as well. They had all spoken the exact same words. Su Ming stared at the threads spinning around him. He examined the faint image of the locust and narrowed his eyes. When he raised his right hand, he extended his right index finger, and a thin thread immediately shot out to wrap itself around his finger before half of it crawled into him. Su Ming's expression remained the same. He sensed the presence of the thread and discovered that the cultivation base in his body was being absorbed swiftly. His cultivation base was fusing into the gray thread, which was visibly becoming thicker. Its life force also increased at that moment, and it no longer looked like it was about to wither. So you absorb cultivation bases, huh? I wonder if this thing will be a huge supplement to you. Su Ming fell into a moment of pensive silence before he decided to keep the strange thing from Dark Dawn as his pet to figure Dark Dawn's strength. After mulling over it for a moment, he flung his right hand. Once he sent the thread away from his body, a poisonous wasp appeared on his palm. It was the poisonous wasp which contained the God Ascension nectar. Under Su Ming's control, one drop of the poisonous liquid seeped out of the wasp's stinger. At the instant the drop appeared, the 100,000 threads surrounding Su Ming stopped rotating simultaneously as if they had frozen. Not one of them moved.